Hey everyone, Leo with the Dreaming Tree, and welcome to the assembly video for our Pixie treat box. Now at first glance, you're gonna feel like this is pretty familiar for some reason, and that's because we have a few pieces that are very similar. They're essentially paper busts of various characters. In this case, we've got a beautiful fairy. In the past, we've done a scarecrow, we've also done a witch. I believe there was a chick for Easter. There's probably some more that I'm forgetting about, but this one is going to be extra special, and this is probably not difficult, but definitely a little bit more time consuming. But if you've made the other ones that I mentioned just a moment ago, this will be a breeze for you. But definitely take some time, take your time, and let's just kind of jump right in here. So as always, we're going to go through everything systematically. Now, one thing that I did off camera is I put these pieces together. There's a few little accent pieces that go just below our fairy's head, and these are those pieces. Now, as you can see, I've already put 4 of them together. You're going to have 6 of these, and you'll notice that the tips go different ways. There's going to be 3 that go one way, 3 that go the other way, and when you put these on, you want to make sure that you put the right one on, because you can see here that this one does not match up. Okay, that does not match up. And you want to make sure that you get the one in the spot where it does match up. This lighter green color is basically a shadow layer for this section. So just keep that in mind as you're gluing. So I'm going to begin by just putting glue on the back of the top part of this section. And this is a beautiful glitter paper from DCWV, which fortunately is probably some of the most available paper on the market. Now, as this dries, what I want you to do is kind of fold this into somewhat of an S shape. You want to fold it towards you at the very top, and then at the bottom, just kind of fold it. Well, actually, you know what? We want to fold it so that, yeah, you actually want to fold it away from you at the top and then fold it towards you at the bottom. So it's kind of creating like this, just this slight S shape, okay? And just don't forget to hit the very tips of each of these little leaves just to make sure that everything is making good contact. And at the end, you should have something like this. It's just a lot easier and smarter to do it now while that glue is drying. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking for. I'm going to do one more here with you. And you are going to put together all 6 of them. So I'm showing you one of each style. And the style, what I mean by style is just the direction that it's going in. They're essentially the same style. There's just one slight little difference. Okay. Now this glitter paper that I'm using is not your typical cardstock. It almost feels like a plastic, I guess you could say. Okay, so again, we're actually not really curving it too much at all at the top, maybe just a tad. Okay, and actually, okay, so as you're gluing this, just make sure that you kind of curl the very bottom up towards you a little bit. You want it to kind of look like that, okay? So you just want to make sure that you do the rest of them and that you're putting the correct one on the correct shadow layer so that this little section here matches up. Okay, so you're going to repeat that a total of 5 times. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to put that off to the side. We're going to use that later on once most of the project is assembled. A couple of things I do want to mention is these little overlays that go on the base of our fairy. You can see that I've inked and also ran those through an embossing machine using, actually it's this embossing folder by Doris. Okay, so if you happen to see that, you can see that on Amazon. I think we probably will be linking to it in the supply list on the website, so check that out. And then one other thing that I also embossed, and this is an old Cuttlebug folder, so you may not be able to find this, but you can see here that I've inked. These are the petals, the main petals on the little flower hat for our fairy. I also embossed that. You can emboss it with something else. It's not a big deal. Just showing you that we're adding a little bit more texture to that section. Okay, with that said, we're actually going to begin by assembling the base of our little fairy here. So you're going to want to find these pieces first, okay, and then you'll also want to find this piece, okay. And then also, you're going to find this little piece as well, actually two of them. That's going to go around the very bottom, and that's pretty much it. So I've already kind of pre-folded everything. What I'm also going to do, while this is flat, because it's just a lot easier, is actually get these panels on. These panels are going to leave a little bit of a border, okay, so we can actually do this now rather than wait. And begin by just putting glue on the back of the panels and just popping them in place. And again, as we're doing that, just make sure that you're conscious of the fact that we're trying to leave a small little border of the actually the piece of paper that's under it. I'll still be able to see that around the perimeter, just a tad, okay? It is the same color, but with a little bit of ink, it kind of creates a little two-tone effect and adds a little bit of interest to the piece. So I definitely recommend taking the time to ink. If you don't ink, that's okay. You can always just run it through an embossing machine. You'll still have that beautiful raised surface to give it a little bit of extra interest. There's going to be a lot of things going on in this project once everything's said and done. We're going to give her a nice little bow. And I've got bling galore because, of course, she is a fairy. And, well, she's sparkly. They're always picture kind of like fireflies when I think of fairies and that sort of feeling that I don't know if it would be ominous, but definitely ethereal sort of feeling in a forest during twilight with little fireflies shining their little lights. Okay, so we'll grab this other side as well. So as you probably figured out by looking at this, our fairy is 8-sided. We're going to make it look round once everything is said and done, but from a construction standpoint, it's 8-sided. And you'll see how we go about making everything nice and round. It's pretty remarkable that we can take flat and square and jagged pieces of paper and turn them into round little sculptures. It's very cool, actually. Okay, there's also, for the hair on our fairy, there's a little bit of stuff going on with that. I don't want to pre-glue all that yet because we're going to, as we glue, kind of style the hair so it looks like it's kind of flowing a little bit. Not too much. It's not like she just went to the salon and got her hair done, but we do need to sort of train it in a certain direction just so that everything looks and fits correctly. Okay, so I've got the last panel on here now. And again, making sure that I maintain a nice little border around the panel. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to connect these two sections using this little triangular tab here. So begin by applying your glue to the tab. Now let's make sure that we cover that entire tab with glue. We don't have a lot of surface area to work with, so it is important that we utilize as much of it as we can. Okay, then lay this piece right next to it, and you can do this flat. Just pop that piece right next door, right on top of the little tab that we just put glue on. Give that a second to set, and then to check your work, if you fold it over onto itself, these tabs here, you see how they line up perfectly? That is a good indicator that we got everything glued and lined up very accurately. Okay, we're gonna let that kind of sit for a minute because, again, it's really our only connection point, and we wanna make sure that it gets a good hold. Okay, shouldn't take long because I didn't put that much glue on it. And now, all that's left to do is begin gluing the large tabs to their neighbors here, like so. So we're going to put glue on each of these tabs. It's kind of odd shaped little triangles, and try to work that glue out to the very edge of each of these so that when we join it to the neighboring side, the very edge of this sits nice and flat, okay? And when we take the neighboring piece and overlap it onto that tab, you want to essentially, if you can visualize cutting that score mark in half, try to get in the middle of that score mark, okay? Or just butt it right up to the score mark. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our glue on the next tab and spread that glue out nice and thin. That way we can keep this rocking and rolling. If you find yourself having to wait way too long for your tabs to dry, it's probably because you're using too much glue. So just ease back a little bit. And if you're, too much glue, or if you do happen to get too much glue on there, you can always thin it out with your finger, spread it around, and again, to get a nice clean result, make sure that you get that glue all the way out to the very edge of that tab. It's going to look nice and crisp. And if you use too much glue, sometimes you get a bunch of glue that shoots out, and while it claims, the bottle claims to no run formula, I don't believe that. And it does dry clear, but it leaves a slight glossy sort of look or sheen to your project, and that can also be a little unsightly, but you decide what level of perfection you're trying to achieve. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, but we can strive to do our best. Okay. All right, so that one is lined up. Just moving right along here, grabbing the next tab. There we go, spreading that glue out. I'm spreading it out so much that it almost looks like there's nothing there. I think that's probably a really good consistency to have, because it's gonna really grip and start to set very quickly. All right, so let's go ahead and spread that glue out and get that lined up with the opposite side there, the neighboring side. And the last one. And then all we're going to do is kind of just join the two ends together to make it one solid piece. Yeah, obviously I have to put a bottom on it as well. And then we've got a nice little purple overlay to give this a little bit more interest. Okay, beautiful. All right, so at this point, I think it's probably a good idea to join this at, well, I'm going to go with this little tab here in the center because I want to make sure that I get that on correctly. So let's do that. Let's put our glue on the small triangular tab here. And just like we did with the first one, make sure that you spread that glue out and we cover as much of that area as we can. Get that nice and straight and press that down. And just hold that for a moment. Now this tab looks like it might be tough to get to, but it's really not, because we can just flip her over. That's what we're going to do. Flip it upside down and apply our glue to that last large tab. There we go. And then press that up against the back of this section, just like we've been doing with the rest of these. Very simple. There we go. Okay, so that's that. Now we have the bottom, which we need to close up. Okay, so let's flip this over. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this down onto these tabs, but we're actually going to anchor it to one of these tabs first, just so that we don't have to try to do all of these tabs all at once. That's going to be quite the task. So we're going to start with just one, get that nice and centered, and that's going to help us make sure that everything comes together very nicely. Okay, so I've got glue on one of the tabs. I want to line that up nice and centered, right out to the very edge. Pardon my head here a second. That looks good. Press that down. Okay, and then I'm going to flip this down onto my table and press down like so. Now, that glue is very tacky, so it grabbed that tab, it's holding onto it, and then I very gently let it kind of fall onto my table so that I can press down on the rest of it. It's got a really good hold, nice and crisp, and the edge looks great. So now that that's being held in place, we can apply glue to the remaining tabs. I'm going to go a little bit heavier on the outside, and then I'm going to do one thicker line right up to the very edge. And I'm going to spread that thin with my fingers. Got to kind of move quick here. We got a lot of surface area to work with. There we go. And just start spreading that out to the very edge. We want everything to look almost as if it was 3D printed instead of put together by hand with glue. I think we can achieve that. Okay, all right, so we're going to close this up. You want to focus on getting it aligned with this section here that I'm pointing to. Okay, just work on getting that centered. And if you need to kind of push the walls in, feel free to do that. Totally normal. Okay, now this one needs to come out a little bit. So whatever you need to do, this one needs to come out just a tad. And you got to kind of work quick. Now I can push down from the inside to help the rest of those tabs keep everything in place. Okay. And then I'm going to continue to press down along the very edges to make sure that the seam where the bottom meets the sides is nice and seamless as well. And it looks like I may be able to achieve that. I might have a few areas that maybe are not perfectly flush, but we can easily fix that, and I'll show you. Just grab a scrap piece of paper, throw a little bit of glue right on the very corner, and if you have a little area with a gap, just stick that in there, and just paint a little bit of glue right onto that and press down and give that a little extra TLC, and then you'll have a nice beautiful seam. So check your work all the way around. Use this little tip to clean it up, and then we can begin putting the little panel on the side there. Okay, so the base is pretty much done here. As I mentioned, I'm going to go around and clean up any of the little seams that are maybe just not as tight as they can be by just using my scrap piece of paper and giving them a little bit of extra love. All of the other ones look pretty darn good though. So that's all I needed to do. Okay, so now we're going to take these two strips and we're going to put these on. You'll notice that there are some score marks. And when you fold these, just make sure that when you fold them, you kind of put them on top of each other to make sure that they're nice and straight. It's a great way to make sure that everything is straight by just kind of measuring them up against themselves. And now this one here with the tabs on the ends, that's going to go on first. But let's get this one folded just to get it ready. There we go. And there we go. Okay. All right, so we're going to begin by putting glue on just one of the intersections here. Let's start on this one. If you put it over here, that's fine too. I'm going to start here. And we're going to pop that right on the very side. Use those score marks to your advantage and try to make sure that the bottom is nice and flush with the actual base. Okay, perfect. And now, while we're actually holding that in place, we can take and apply glue to the next section and just fold that over onto the side. That next score mark should match up with the edge there. Okay, kind of going to continue holding that and pull that out and get my glue on the next section, and then throw some glue on that tab as well and fold that over again, continuing to make sure that you've got it nice and flush with the bottom of the actual base, and then fold this tab over. Okay, then I can go over to the opposite side and get that glued down. And a little bit of glue on that tab, fold that over. You can kind of use your fingers to feel that panel and make sure that it's sitting nice and flush with the bottom. And that came out perfect and it fit like a glove. Okay, so now we're going to take the other half of this and let's just kind of pop it on there so we know where it goes. It's going to go right like that. And the ends of these two sides are going to cover the little tab there. Just like we did the first time, we're going to start with one of the intersections. So let's start with this one here. And just make sure that you're putting it in the right spot. So that one's going to go there, which means that this one has to go here. And just pop that right on. There we go. Press that down, nice and flush with the bottom. Kind of continue to hold that. We'll flare this out. And there we go. And the last one here, it's important that we get glue all the way out to the very edge. There we go, and fold that over right on top of the previous layer there with the tab. Continue to make sure that it's flush with the bottom. There we go, beautiful. We can make our way over to this side. Oh, I guess I already put glue on that. Kind of ripped that off on accident, but that's okay, we can clean it up. Pop that back on and line that up. And there we go. Okay. So that's that. Our base looks great. Everything's making good contact. Beautiful. Okay. All right, so put that off to the side for now. The next thing we're going to begin working on is the actual little hats for our pretty little fairy. Okay, and that's going to consist of these pieces here. Now these are not numbered, they're all identical, and just because of the shape that they're going to create, they had to be cut individually, so we've got a little bit of work to do here, getting all these together. And we're going to begin by gluing the large tab first. Okay, so let's do that. Go ahead and get your glue on the large tab. I'm going to spread that out to the very edge. Take the neighboring piece, line that up. Okay, and press that down. Now with the first piece here, you can actually fold it flat onto itself to get everything nice and lined up. And there we go, just like that. And then we'll just work our way up the remaining 3 tabs and get those glued down. Just gonna hit that with my finger, get that glue all the way out to the edge, and just do your best to get those lined up. They're gonna start to kind of come in a little bit. Now this first section here barely comes in, but it does. And this section you'll see here, in order to get the edge of this lined up with the tab, or the score mark on this side, it is going to kind of come in. Okay, so you can see how it starts to kind of go up and in. So let's fold that back and get our glue on this tab. Kind of dab that, spread it nice and thin so it grabs a lot quicker, and get that nice and lined up. Okay, now as we kind of move along here, this large first tab, I'm going to do that one on its own because I want to make sure that we get a good starting point joining these 2 sections together. But the next time, I'm actually going to probably do the remaining 3 tabs all at the same time, meaning I'll put the glue on and just kind of squish these pieces together all in a row. Okay, so let's start with the large one. Get your glue on here. Okay, spread that glue out. If you accidentally get glue on this section here, it's okay because we've got some panels that are going to go over this eventually, and everything's going to be covered up. So now's the time to get a little sloppy with the glue and get it out of your system. Okay, so just get that lined up just like that. And this time I'm going to fold these back. I'm going to apply glue to all 3 of these. It's not a lot of surface area. You can do one at a time if you want, if you're more comfortable, but I think that this is just going to be, I don't think it's adding too much to your plate, and it will definitely make the process go a lot faster because we don't have to transition from applying glue to actually, matching everything up. And you see how easy that was and how quick that went, especially when the glue is nice and tacky. Okay, so I was able to do all 3 of those in one shot. And I'm just going to move along here to the next section. We're going to do the same thing until all these pieces are all connected. And that is going to create the foundation for our little flower hat for our beautiful fairy. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to grab the next piece, get that nice and lined up. All right, and just like we did before, this time around, the reason I'm pushing these tabs over is because when I apply glue and spread that out with my finger, it's harder for this glue to get onto this surface because of that 90-degree angle that's there. So it just kind of helps keep the glue in place, in the place that you need it, not on other surfaces where you don't. It doesn't really matter, because again, there's panels that are going to be going over this, but it's just a good practice. It's a good technique to kind of get used to, especially if you want nice, clean end results. Okay, there we go. Looking good. And you can see how quickly that glue sets. So this is where things start to get a little repetitive, but this is where you'll probably, I don't know if you're listening and following along the whole time. I don't think you guys watch the entire video, maybe you do. But if you don't, this is where I kind of, when I'm doing this off camera, this is where I get into that Zen mode, where everything just kind of goes into autopilot. I'm not really thinking about too much, just kind of focusing and getting into that meditative state. So yeah, as far as ideas for this, obviously, anyone that loves fairies, Tinkerbell actually just did a Peter Pan themed escape room where one of the objectives was to actually free Tinkerbell, which was kind of cool. I've been doing a lot of escape rooms over the last couple years, and we're getting pretty darn good at them. Got almost, I don't know, can't give you an exact number, but if I had to guess, we probably get out of a good 90% of them, if not more. And it's cool because of COVID, a lot of places don't even let other people in the room with you, so you have a whole private experience. It's pretty cool. Okay, moving along here. I actually was thinking about Disney movies, and I can't say that I watched a lot of Peter Pan growing up. There were definitely a few Disney movies that I watched over and over and over and over again. I don't think Peter Pan was one of them. I'm dating myself here. I used to watch them with my younger sister. Everything was on VHS. My dad would come home every now and then with a new one. It was the most exciting thing in the world. Now everything you can just get on your Apple TV, and anything you ever want to watch is right there. And it seems nowadays It's like you can't find anything to watch, even though you have everything you could ever dream of. And you spend hours and hours trying to just look for something. I almost feel that things were a little bit more fun when you had less options, if that makes any sense. That, or I'm just turning into an old man. Could be a combination of the two. Okay. All right, moving along here. We've got a couple more to go. Not too bad. It's not hard. Just have to, again, take your time. Now, sometimes when I see posts from people that are maybe first trying out a 3D project, and it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. They get frustrated because they say they have a hard time putting together some of the 3D stuff. And my advice to you, if you're listening and you kind of resonate with that statement, is take your time. Use the glue that I use. Maybe it's your glue. And also maybe make sure you have a nice quality cardstock that actually absorbs the glue and isn't just, isn't too thin. 80-pound cardstock seems to be that magic number. And just follow along. Make sure you're not using too much glue. Take your time. That's the most important thing. And actually just focus and don't get distracted. I'll put YouTube on sometimes when I'm crafting. I'm not watching it, but I'm listening, and that's okay. Maybe music. But definitely keep your focus on the project itself. I think it's great for building and maintaining, dexterity and mental as well as visual focus. It's like a crossword puzzle. Okay, so we've got one last piece here to connect, and then we're going to join the whole thing together. So let's get our glue on this large tab. Almost there. Okay, get that nice and lined up. And then we'll do the 3. And let's peel that back, get our glue on these guys here. Going back to Disney, I want to say that I sure watched a lot of Aladdin. And I think it was mostly because of my sister, actually. Lion King, Aladdin, and Beauty and the Beast are probably the ones that we watched the most. Little Mermaid, of course. Not so much Snow White. Although, one of my favorite memories from being a kid. By the way, we're at the last section here where we're going to kind of finish the circle here. Make sure we've got all the panels, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We do. So just like we did before, I'm going to start with the large tab here. And get that glue out to the edge. Okay. And get that nice and lined up. So it's basically the same thing we've just done, except that we're not grabbing a loose piece, we're just joining it to the opposite side here. Okay, now these 3 tabs up here, we're gonna have to hit those with glue from the inside, or you can always grab a scrap piece of paper and paint the glue like so. I think it's probably just gonna be easier to open up or take a look at it from the inside here. Push those tabs down so you can see them. You can see them there, those 3 tabs, and just apply your glue just like we would normally. Try to make sure you get some of that glue out to the edge as well. Okay, and you can't see it because it's back here, but Same thing, just make sure you're getting it lined up. And there we go. Beautiful. Last tab, you can stick your finger up from the top. Get that glued down. There we go. Okay. That's looking sharp. Let's take a look at the shape. Looks great. Okay, so now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab this piece. We need to put a bottom on this. Okay, and actually, you know what? Maybe it might be easier. We're going to leave this as is for now. There's another top section that we need to put together. It's this guy here. And this is where the little calyx for the flower, which is the hat, is going to go. And this one's very simple to put together, actually. What we're going to do is we're going to put glue on this tab here. Okay, thin that out nicely. And fold that over. You can actually do this flat. So we've got glue on that tab. I'm just going to lay that onto itself flat and grab the other end and just press that down. Should match up perfectly. And then I can take it and fold it over onto that seam where I just put glue and press that down. Okay, there we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close up the top like that. It's kind of a little bit of a fragile, wobbly piece, but we do need to get this top down. And I'm going to dab these tabs with my finger. And you're going to focus on getting the lid here lined up with this one opposite side of the actual lid. Get that nice and straight, as straight as you can get it. And then if you need to, just kind of nudge the other walls a little bit, just until it gets a good grip. It may be a little difficult at first, but once that glue starts getting tacky, it'll stop moving so much. Okay, so it does help to kind of push this down on your surface as you're waiting for this top little lid to set. It's a lot easier to kind of nudge the different sides, whichever way you need to nudge them for it to really take hold, and that worked out very nice. I didn't even push down on the inside at all. I was more focused on trying to make sure that the very edges were nice and neat. So now we can actually throw a little bit of glue inside, because we have this piece. It's going to go right inside, and that's going to help kind of keep its shape. Just pop that in there. There we go. Okay. All right, so that is that. And now what we're going to do, actually pop this in through the inside of our main structure here. We're going to glue these two sections together using the little tabs at the bottom of this lime green piece. You can see the little tabs in there. We're going to start off by just gluing one, getting it nice and anchored. I'm not overly concerned about getting all the glue out to the very edge. Just want to make sure I get some glue on just one of the tabs. I'm going to push that up against this piece here. And the reason I'm looking at it from this vantage point is because I just want to make sure that it looks straight and that tab, the edge of it, is nice and flush with the very edge of this purple or lilac color. Okay, so you can see that first tab right there is glued down. Now I'm going to move over to the side opposite of the side that I just glued down. And we're going to put glue on that tab right there. So you can see it's the opposite side. And I'll just show you just so you can actually see what's going on here. Let me grab a dowel or something. Get a nice skinny one. All we're doing is taking this tab and pushing it up against the inside of the main part of our flower hat. And if I need to kind of scoot it up a little bit, I can do that. And there we go. Shouldn't take long. Okay, so now this side and this side are nice and glued down. And I'm going to move over to this side now. So let's fold that down and let's put a little bit of glue on that tab there. There it is, right there. And we're just going to take and press that up against this side of our flower hat. And I might need to, here we go. That looks good. Perfect. Okay, so we've got 3 down. Now I'm going to go to the side opposite of the side that I just did. Kind of looks like it might be like skewed a little bit, but that's okay. We still have panels that are going over this. So I'm going to show you this one more time. We've got glue on that panel, and then we're going to push and press it up against the inside of that little wall there. And I'm going to just look at it from this side. I'm pushing with my finger here and pushing on the other side here, just kind of squeezing it and sandwiching it. Okay, so we got 4 in. Now at this point, I think it's probably safe to just get your glue on the remaining 4 tabs. This thing's not going anywhere. Okay, and then we'll just push all those over and onto the side of our little wall here. Okay, and then just skip one, and you can kind of feel and find the next one there. There we go. Okay, so all 4, actually all 8 are in place now. Okay, so now that we have that all in place, we're actually going to put the panels on this probably once we can actually put this on top of the fairy's head. And I'll show you why in a little bit here. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this little piece on, and this is going to kind of keep this whole thing in shape. And these little tabs here are going to be used to create a nice little lip. It's going to actually go inside of our little fairy's head. Okay, so just like we did with the base, we're going to anchor this down on one of the tabs just to kind of start. And actually, you know what, it might be easier. Let's do this first. Let's put this on first. I think it'll be easier to do it this way. Grab these 2 strips, and we're going to put glue on one of the triangular tabs here. And let's spread that glue out. I didn't get enough on there. There we go. Okay. And I'm just going to line these up and press that down, just like that. You can fold it over onto itself, and then these lines, if they're straight, because if it's like this, you know it's off. You want to make sure that they're straight on top of each other and let it set, knowing that they're literally laying on top of each other perfectly. Okay, there we go. And then we'll take and put glue on the other triangular tab here and spread that out to the very edge. Okay. And close that up. Okay, so now it's all one continuous piece. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and we're going to put it on top of this section here. It'll fit. Squeeze those tabs inside, like so. Okay, and this is, again, this is the little lip. And what we're going to do is we're going to glue these tabs to the inside of the lip. So just throw a little bit of glue on one of the tabs, and then make sure you're pushing this down so it's nice and flush against this structure here, and then press that into place, just like that. Okay, so this tab is now glued down, and just like we did with the previous element, we're going to go to the opposite side, throw some glue on that tab, and press that up against the inner wall of this piece here. Okay, so we've got these 2 tabs. Now we're going to go over here and throw some glue on that guy, and then press that up against the wall. Okay, so we should end up with something like this. Okay, I'm going to go over here, do the one across from the one I just did, press that up against the wall, continuing to make sure that the actual vertical part here, this guy here, is nice and flush up against this piece here. Okay, so we've got 4 down. Now we can take, just kind of skip one. Those are the ones that we didn't do yet. And we can certainly just put glue on the remaining 4 and just press those up against the inside. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, so there's, from the outside, it looks really nice. Okay, so now we're going to take this and we're going to glue it to the bottom. Okay, and again, we're going to start with just one side so that we get it nice and anchored. It's going to make the rest of the process a lot easier. Spread that glue out to the very edge. I'm going to put it like this and get that nice and lined up, nice and centered, nice and flush, right up to the very edge of that tab. Okay, and we can take it and let it loose and press down from underneath. Make sure that entire tab is making good contact. Let's take a look at the seam. Looks great. Okay, so now we're going to take and put glue on the remaining tabs here. I'm going to go a little bit heavier on the glue, or with the glue. So I'm going to be spreading that out to the very edge of these tabs here. And I sense a clog in my bottle. The dreaded clog. It's okay. All right, spread that out to the edge. This is actually going to be covered up with some panels. You see how hard I'm squeezing right now? You can tell I've got a clog. I'm going to need to clean that out before we move on here. It's making my work a little bit difficult right now. There we go. Okay, so focus on getting it lined up with the side opposite of the side that is already hinged and glued. Get that nice and centered. And then just work your way around, focusing on the very seam, the very edge of where these two sections are meeting, and making sure that that's making good contact. The rest of it, we can kind of stick our fingers in there and press down on the remaining part of the tab. This we're probably going to have to clean up using my little painting technique, and that's okay. No problem there. Part of the reason for that is probably because I didn't get enough glue on there and it started to get too dry before it's set, but I might be able to salvage it as long as you keep pressing down. Even though it feels like it might not be sticking, it's probably still pretty tacky and it might just grip. So we'll see. And if not, I can always fix it. But that looks actually pretty good for most of the sides. And again, it's going to be covered up by the little purple panels here. These guys are going to be covering most of that up. So I'm not overly concerned about this seam. I would, just for structural purposes, make sure that for the most part it's all intact, and I think that's fine. That looks pretty good actually. Okay, great. Okay, so this piece here, I did hit the tips of this with some ink. We're gonna wait until our fairy's head is all complete before we move on to these panels. So this and this are, we're gonna save that for a later step. Let's put that off to the side for now. So our ears, we've got 2 layers for the ears. Now we're gonna glue these down like so, but you do not wanna put glue on these little tabs. We're actually gonna leave these to kind of float free because we're gonna use these to anchor this to her head. So we only want to put glue on the non-tab portion of the ear. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm gonna start by just putting glue on this ear portion, the one with the cutout, and that's gonna go onto the little shadow portion of the ear. Okay, so grab this piece here, and actually, let me see here. You know what, I actually inked that, and I didn't need to. So don't make that mistake. There we go. Get that nice and lined up as accurately as you can. There we go. Okay, so that's one ear done. Again, do not glue little tabs. We're going to need to save those for later. Okay, and we'll grab the other one. Get your glue on the ear. pop that right on top of this shadow element. And press that down, just like that. Okay, so 2 ears done. Now, I'm gonna grab this piece here. Now what you wanna do is we're gonna fold this, and just like we did before, we're not gonna put any glue on these little tabs, but we're gonna take these and glue them back to back like this. Okay, so just put glue on one half, just one side on the inside. I did a lot of inking on this project, so ink where appropriate, which is pretty much everywhere, anywhere you want. Take a look at the final photo as well to kind of see all the little extra details that you can add. And don't ever be limited by what you see in the photo. Make it your own. Okay, so we've got that in place, and now we have a little overlay. It's going to go right in the center here. Okay, now the cutout here, the little almost like a tear shape cutout, that is the exact same size as the structure that we're gluing it to. So you want to kind of use that as a guide for placement. As long as you have these two little teardrops lined up accurately, you know it's going to fit, and you've got it in the right spot. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Grab your glue. Oh, now it's flowing like crazy. Geez, glue. All right. And I'll flip this over again, matching up the little teardrop in the center there. The rest of it should fall into place, just like that. Okay, so that's going to go on top of that green piece that we just put on the main part of the flower. We can put that off to the side. We do have some facial features here that we do need to assemble. I'm going to get those pre-assembled as well, just to get it out of the way. But actually, before we do, remember these guys? I totally forgot that we have these little purple elements that actually go right here. So we do need to get those glued down, and we might as well do it now. So we're going to do this a total of 6 times. Grab your glue, pop it on the back of these. I also inked these. We cut this out of purple. I inked it with a purple that, well, when you put the ink down, leaves a little bit of a darker purple. Obviously, if you try to ink it with something lighter than the color you're inking, it's not going to show up. So I always try to find a tone that is a little bit darker. Okay, so there's one, and this is pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to repeat this until all of the leaves have purple. Okay, so that's going to lead us into putting together, paper piecing, essentially, the facial features. And then we're going to start putting together the main structure for our fairy's head, which is really not that much different than what we did with the hat. It's a slightly different shape, but the process is going to be very familiar. So I don't think you're going to, if you were able to put the hat together nicely, you should have no problem with the face. Okay, so just finish this up. Continue putting these little purple pieces onto these little leaves, and then I'll meet you back here and we can start with the main part of our fairy. Okay, so let's put the eyes together. We're going to start off with, in my case, the purple piece. So we're going to glue the white on top of that. Okay. Try to make sure that you get enough glue, not too much, just enough, onto the very tips of the little eyelashes there. And do your best to line that up as accurately as you can. Okay, and then we're going to take this piece that has the little eyelashes on there as well as the other features of the eye. We're going to glue that on top, like so. Okay, I've got a kind of a skinny little element there, so you probably just want to do some dots of glue on that. Don't want to go overboard. There we go, just like that. And press that down. Okay, and then I'm going to give her some blue eyes, and that's going to go kind of like a little puzzle right into this little moon-shaped area here. It should fit nice and snug, like literally like a little puzzle piece, just like that. Okay, so that's one of the eyes. And we're going to repeat that same process for the other side. Okay, so of course we're going to begin with our white piece, and it's going to go on like so. Okay, so this is pretty elementary paper piecing 101 type stuff, but I never want to leave anything out. You guys love the videos and how thorough I am, so of course I'm going to just show you, even though I think I could figure it out. So we're really kind of, I think we're probably at the halfway point here. Not quite on the home stretch, but we'll get there. Okay, and we'll grab this piece here with all of the little eye details. And try to get a little bit on that really thin area as well. And let's get that lined up as accurately as we can. Just like that. And press that down. If you have any little bits of glue that maybe squirted out, just rub them off with your finger before you get a chance to set. And we'll be in good shape. And then grab the little blue moon-shaped piece here. Just pop that right into that section there. Press that into place, and there we go. With her beautiful eyes, looking like that. We do have some eyebrows. We don't really need to do anything with that, but we do have the nose, which we also don't need to do anything with. That's that little guy right there. And then we have some lips. Now, I'm kind of folding this in the center. You don't want to crease it, just kind of round it so that it's not flat. It's a little bit round, because we're going to take this piece and glue it right there. And this piece is going to go on the bottom. And try to kind of maintain a little bit of a curve. Okay, and then we'll take this piece here and glue that to the very base, very bottom of this section here. Should be a little bit of a gap between these two layers, just like that. Okay. Okay. So we have the facial features all done, the leaves are done. Let's go ahead and begin with the assembly of, well, the assembly of the main structure of our fairy's face. So again, this is going to be just kind of repetitive, not difficult at all. One thing you do want to keep in mind here is that these are numbered, and they're numbered for a reason. Okay, so we got a 1, 2, 3, the 4, and I'll darken this in so you can see it. I know many of you are already familiar with our scheme. Okay, so it's like that, that's 4. 5 is this plus a 1. Okay, sorry, that should be more square. Okay, 6 is that same little square with the 4 marks, and then 2, okay, and so on and so forth. So the four score marks in the shape of basically a circle or a square signifies 4. And then anything after that is 5, 6, 7, 8. So we want to glue these in a particular order because some of these tabs have these little cutouts here, and that's where the ears are going to go. So we want to make sure we keep that in the right spot. Okay, but either way, we're going to start here by gluing number 1 to number 2, and we're going to begin by doing the first tab by itself. So we'll just put glue on the bottommost tab and get that glue out to the very edge and line that up. And just press and hold that in place, let it set. Make sure that you have it as lined up as you can. This little horizontal score mark should match up with this one here. You should see them kind of meet at that point there. And then we'll go ahead and put glue on the next tab. And press, kind of dab that glue, thin it out. It'll make this process go a lot faster. And line that up as accurately as you can. There we go. And just moving right along here. So got a lot of tabs to glue down. And with this one, I would probably, I think after we get like, excuse me, the first like 3, I think we can probably maybe do a couple at a time. Maybe the other 3 we can do at the same time. Let's try that, see how that goes. I'm going to put glue on all 3 of these tabs. Spread that glue out nice and thin out to the edge. Now again, if you do happen to get a little bit of glue onto this surface, don't worry about it. We've got panels that are going over this that'll hide any little imperfection you may have. And then just continue working your way up, getting everything lined up as accurately as you can. Okay. There we go. Okay, so there's 2, and then we're going to grab, this is piece 1, piece 2, this is piece number 3. Make sure you keep an eye out for those little numerals here at the bottom. And again, we're going to start with just 1 tab to get it nice and anchored in place. Spread that glue out to the very edge. Okay. And get that in place. There we go. And let that set before we move on here, because the easiest way to get to the next set of tabs is to kind of fold that out of the way and begin. I'm going to go ahead and do a few at a time here. I think as long as we get that first one anchored, it's up to you how many you want to do at a time here. I think 3 is a good number. 3 is sometimes a magic number. So we'll just go with that. Okay, and just continue to make sure that you're getting it aligned as accurately as you can. That is the most important thing you can do at this point. That, and don't use too much glue, otherwise you're going to be sitting here for hours waiting for each of these little tabs to dry. As you can see, when you go easy on the glue, you can really make quick work of a job like this. Not difficult at all, like I said, just repetitive, but as I mentioned earlier in the video, this is where you kind of get lost in that craft zen. Okay, there we go. Looking sharp. Okay, so 3rd one down. Just a few more to go. Okay, there we go, 3 down. Don't forget, grab number 4. 4 is the one with the 4 little score marks, all in a square shape. Start with just the bottom tab so we can get it anchored. Thin that glue out. Don't need all that glue. It's actually kind of thick there. This one might take a little bit longer to dry. Okay, get that lined up as accurately as you can. I'm kind of focusing on this score mark here as my guide. Okay, Press that down into place. Now this is going to take a little bit longer to dry because I could tell when I was spreading that ink out to the very edge of the tabs, I could tell that it was a little bit thicker than usual. You'll start to feel that and kind of get an idea of whether or not you put too much glue on something or not. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and probably do 3. Let's do 3. I don't want to overdo it. Get that glue out to the very edges, kind of tack it up, and that'll go a lot quicker for us. Okay. And whatever way feels the most comfortable for you, that's the way I suggest you hold this piece as you're kind of gluing everything together. This is kind of a wide piece. My hands aren't the biggest hands, but I seem to be able to get my hand in there okay. There we go. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect because we do have panels that are going to go over this, but we want to be in the ballpark. I always strive to be as accurate and precise. We're never going to be perfect, but we can strive for it. So just remember that. Don't beat yourself up if one tab is a little bit off. We've got some systems in place to make you look really good. All right. Getting there. There we go. Okay. So halfway done already. That wasn't too bad. Okay. There we go. All right. So moving on here. And you can see on piece number 5 that this little section here is a tiny little cutout. And that is just going to go right over that. Again, that's just to make sure that we have plenty of room to slide her ears in so that we have a place to anchor them. So you don't need to worry about it. Just be aware that it's there. And if you grab your next piece and you don't see that little notch cut out there, then you probably got the wrong piece and you want to make sure you grab the right one. This is piece number 5 that I'm holding right now. Okay, get that lined up as accurately as you can. There we go. And we'll pull that back, and I'm going to apply glue to the next 3. Thin that glue out. Okay. And just keep on working your way up here. Just make sure that you try to get that lined up as accurately as you can. And for this piece here that has that little notch cut out, just focus on the ends and make sure that the ends are making good contact. We don't have a lot of real estate there for it to hold. So we got to work with what we have, and that's quite all right. You can tell that when I start getting into this mode, I kind of talk a little bit less, but as I get more comfortable with this process, it'll kind of just be second nature and won't be that difficult. All right, we peel that back. We've got 2 tabs left, and let's get our glue on here. Thin it out, get it out to the very edge. Okay, and there we go. All right. So you're gonna love the way that all of this kind of comes together. There's one more section where we've got some paper piecing stuff to do with her hair. Okay, but that's what it should look like so far. Almost looks like a Chinese lantern, sort of. Okay, so we're looking at piece number 4, 5, 6, and the same process here. Just going to put glue on the bottom tab. We're going to get it anchored first. Okay. get that nice and lined up. And let's go next 3. Okay. And there we go. And it's really flowing now. So I was just thinking about all the different ways that this could be used. Now obviously my little girl Gabby, she loves all the girly stuff that we make, and also some of the non-girly stuff. She's a bit of a wild one, and this would be a great little piece to have in a child's room. But I definitely see this as a cool little centerpiece at a birthday party, that's for sure. Or if it's not a centerpiece, and maybe for your daughter or granddaughter or grandson, whoever it may be, you can put a little cool gift in here. Maybe like, how about maybe some Roblox gift cards, Fortnite, Minecraft. You can put some jewelry in here. It's a pretty good size, actually. I mean, it's not, you're not going to fit clothing in here, of course, but any number of those, any one of those things will definitely fit. Again, make sure that you've got the right number here. This is piece 7. I'm attaching it to piece 6. Okay, so just make sure that you're getting everything lined up accurately in order. Of course, you can fill this with goodies too. Candies, Sour Patch Kids, whatever it may be, chocolates, all kinds of stuff fit in here. Definitely even maybe an Apple gift card. You know, fill it with some tissue or some crinkle fill, whatever it may be. And they're going to adore this. You're not going to find a gift box like this anywhere, that's for sure. Especially, cool thing is too is you get a little bit of love too, because they're gonna be like, wow, you made this out of paper? That is crazy. And it is, we're kind of crazy. It's like that Willy Wonka quote. We're the dreamers of dreams. When it comes to paper, anyway. I don't think we're really changing the world. Or maybe a little bit. Okay, so again, I haven't really been guiding you along here because, well, I haven't been saying much, I should say. Mostly just because this is pretty repetitive at this point. There's only one left now, kind of breezing through this. I'd say this part's probably going to take you about 15 minutes or so just to get this part assembled, but that's not bad. And you can always do this in stages. If you have, if you've got a half a day to work on this, then by all means you can get it done in one shot. If not, just do it in stages. It's a fun little project. Don't have to get it all done in one sitting. That's almost too much pressure. Too much. Should be fun. Okay, so we're down to the last one. The last one has this little notch for the other ear. Okay, so just like we did the last X number of times, start with the bottom to get it anchored. Make sure that we get at least that one in the right spot, and that's going to help the rest of the process. Okay, so line that up. Same thing. Now it's going to get a little tight because we've got the other side kind of rolling in here, getting in our way a little bit. It's not bad. Do your best. There we go. And pull that back. There we go. And let's do 3 at a time here. I think we can handle that. What do you think? I think we can do it. Okay. There we go. Wonderful. All right, let's get that lined up. Okay, so those 3 are done. We'll peel this back. We got 2 more, and then we just need to finish this up by joining the 2 ends together. Okay, now if this is your first project with us, you're kind of seeing how this whole 3D paper thing kind of works. We do design this using some 3D software, which we then take into some proprietary software, and then we take it into another software, try to model it round, and it gets converted into segments like this, because you really can't make paper round. I mean, you can, but you know, the results would vary so much that we would never have a project that is consistent. But I still think we're doing something pretty amazing here. Okay, so you see how this is going to go on, just like the last piece. And with this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start with just the one and get that anchored. And then we're probably going to have to squeeze our glue from the inside to actually get that in there. Okay. Be very patient with this one here. Make sure that it's fully set before you let go. Okay, just keep holding that. You can see. Okay, so all that's left now is to close this up, and we are going to have to work from the inside here since we have this tab already anchored. So you'll want to take and kind of flip the tabs towards you. You can see the tabs here, and you may just want to do a few at a time here, just because it's a little bit more difficult to get in there. So I'm just going to do one at a time until we get this thing completely closed up. And if you get a little bit of glue that shoots out, don't worry about it, because like I said, we're gonna be putting some panels over this. And it'll all be nicely hidden. Okay, and we'll just flip it over, grab the next tab, and apply our glue. Try to make it nice and thin. You can actually squeeze some glue out and then use the nozzle to spread it around. And then of course, you can get your finger in there as usual. And I'm on the 3rd tab up. If it helps, you can actually move these tabs out of the way so that you can get your hand in there a little bit easier. And just press that into place. It's very simple. Just take your time. There we go. Very simple. And I'm going to move the rest of these tabs out of the way so I can get my whole hand in there. There we go. Like a glove. Okay, so we have 3 tabs left on this guy here. Try to be as accurate as you can. Just because it's the last section here doesn't mean we can start getting sloppy. There we go. And moving the next tab back. It's right here. Just pulling it back so I can get some glue on this side here. There we go. And then spread that around and get that lined up just like that. And that just leaves our last tab I think the rest of this is going to go pretty easy for us. Oops. There we go. Perfect. All right, lining up that last tab. And our main structure is pretty much done. Okay, so this is going to be the bottom. And this is actually going to get glued to this structure here. Now, before we do that, because we're actually going to anchor this to the base before we put the panels on so that we have a nice sturdy structure to actually do that to. In the meantime, we've got these two pieces here, and one of these should have a little, yep, we've got an L. We've got two of these. They're almost the same size. One is slightly different. It's a little bit smaller. It's got an L on it. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to put this inside, and then we're going to glue it to these tabs here, like so. Okay, so just grab one of these tabs. It doesn't matter which one. Let's start with just one, and get your glue on that tab. I'm going to thin it out nicely, and you can actually, I think it might be helpful to just flip this over so that those tabs are flat, and just pop that right onto one of those tabs. This doesn't have to be totally accurate. It's just to kind of keep the tabs up for us. Okay, so we've got it glued to this tab here. Now I'm going to go over to the opposite side, and I'm going to put glue on this tab here. Hold on a second. Let me make sure I'm staying in frame here. Just put a little bit of glue on that tab there. Thin that out nicely. And now that this one's anchored, I think it's a little bit easier to get the rest of these glued down. Just glue that to this tab here, like so. Okay, then we can move over to this one here. Nice thin amount of glue. Now in my case here, I'm using American Crafts cardstock. This is actually going onto the non-texture side, which is fine. It may not grip as easily, but that's okay. So now I'm going across to this tab opposite of the tab we just did. Okay, and that just leaves 4 more tabs. This should be all right here, and they are. So just do the last 4 tabs. There we go. And we can close those up. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is literally just to kind of keep these tabs so they don't sink in when we try to put this piece on to close it up. Okay, so this should fit nice and snug right on top. And at this point, you can actually, we'll just put glue on this entire top here. You can go a little bit heavier because I'm gonna thin this out with my fingers. Spread it all the way out to the very edge. So this is just a nice little lip for when we put the head on. It'll be nice and sturdy, and it'll actually look nice too. Spread that glue out nice and even all the way around. Okay, and just put this piece right on top. I'll try to focus on getting it nice and centered and aligned on one side, and then just kind of work your way around. Most of it will actually be hidden anyway when we put the head on, but do your best to make it as pretty as possible. Okay, that fit perfectly. And I'm just gonna work my way around and press it down. There we go. Okay, so one thing that I do recommend right now is take a look at your project here, and we've got a number 1 here. I'm just gonna go ahead and just draw a number 1 here, and I'm gonna put a number 2 here. That's all we need to know. We can figure out what the rest of them are. But since we're gonna be actually gluing these tabs to this structure, we're gonna lose this numbering system. So just put a 1 and a 2 there. Okay, we need to stick these tabs into and through the opening. Press it all the way down as far as it'll go. Okay, and then we just need to glue these to the underside of this section here. So what I'm actually going to do is, just to anchor it initially, I'm going to put glue on number 1. Okay, let's thin that out so it grabs quickly. Okay, and we're going to stick this through, making sure all the tabs are in there. And they are. Press it down all the way until this horizontal score mark is pretty much flush with the base. Get your hand in there, and then take that tab that we just put glue on and tuck it underneath this structure here, and then press this down into place. Okay, it should be nice and straight, and it is. And let's take a look at how the rest of it sits here. And that looks perfect. Okay, so now this is going to be a little tricky, and I'll show you here. Not too bad though. I'm going to go, this is side 1. We're going to take the tab opposite of side 1. We're going to flip it up. I'm using a dowel right now just so you can see what I'm doing. And actually, you know what we can do? We can just fold these up like this from underneath so that we can actually see the surface that we need to put the glue on. Okay. And what I'm going to do, let's see if we can maybe just get this done right now. I'm going to go ahead and put glue on all these tabs. I'm going to go a little bit heavier than usual because we need to kind of work quickly. And we got a lot of tabs to glue to the underside here. So we're going to flip this back onto the base. Okay, so now we can kind of flare them back out now that we've got the glue on them. Okay, stick those through, make sure they're inside of the base. Okay, and let's go over to the side opposite of the 1. This is the first side we did, so we're going to this side here. I'm trying to do this so you can actually see it. And we're going to tuck that, just like we did the first one, right underneath onto the back side of this. Make sure you have it nice and centered. Okay, and then press that down, and then you can kind of just work your way around the other tabs since they already have glue. Get that in there. Make sure it's nice and flush. That score mark should be nice and flush up against the very edge of this section. There we go. That's working out nicely. And if you have a little bit of glue that's seeping out, it's okay because we're actually going to take some ribbon. There's going to be ribbon going all the way across this, and it's going to hide any of that extra glue that may have seeped out. But that is perfect, actually. And that is in place now. If you want, if you're OCD like me and you don't like that glue there, just grab something thin and just kind of pull it out. There we go, perfect. Okay, so that wasn't so bad. Now, at this point, you can see our little top's gonna go on like that. And I guess we can actually, at this point, it doesn't matter where we start. We can start at the top. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start with the flower. Okay, so the way this is gonna work is we're gonna take this is gonna get glued right to the very top of this purple section here. And then we're gonna glue it down here. But the very tip of this, we're gonna start to score, not score it, but train it so that this petal comes up like this. Okay, and you can see I actually inked this side, obviously, but I also inked just maybe the bottom third of this section. So we do need to grab a dowel. So this is the top, this is the texture side. And again, I'm gonna figure out roughly where to begin training because we want this to come down. I want this to come down and start to kind of make its way up here. We want this section mostly hidden. Okay, so I'm gonna take my dowel and I'm gonna begin training it right around there. Okay, and I may need to, you can always go back in and train this a little bit extra after the fact here. But let's take a look and see, and I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so you can put it on top of the base if you want, if it makes it easier for you to work on it. I think it's definitely helps me work on it this way. Okay, so let's grab our glue, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna put glue on just the top section here, just for starters. I'm gonna thin that glue out, get it all the way out to the very, very edge. Okay, and then we're gonna take it and glue it right to that little segment there, as far as you can go without gluing it to the green section. Make sure it's centered, and then just press and hold that down. Okay, just like that. All right, so now that we have the top section on, I started doing this and I had to reset my camera. We also want to put a little bit of glue here on this little segment, and then of course down here at the very base. Okay, and I want to pull that. I'm going to pull that down so that this section here is actually flush up against the structure, and then of course we want it to be making contact here as well. So those two sections where we put glue, we want the paper to be making full contact. Okay, you're going to have probably a tiny little gap here in this section, but that's totally fine. So don't worry too much about that. Just focus on making sure the paper's making good contact here and here. And that's essentially what we want it to look like. Don't let that go prematurely. Make sure it's fully set before you move on to the next one. Okay. All right, so let's get that going here. All right, and then we're just gonna repeat the same process. I've trained this one already, and we're probably going to need to train it again once we have all of them on to try to make them all consistent, and that's totally fine. Okay, so again, you know what, I'm gonna leave this on here, and that's good that we did that because the little petals, they kind of go below this structure here. So it's good that we have that so it doesn't get smushed. Okay, so grab the next section and press that down. Okay, and keep holding that down for a second, and then we'll pull it back. We're going to put a little bit of glue on this segment here, and then of course right here at the bottom. Try not to get glue on the petals that are already already glued down. We don't want to make a mess. Okay, there we go. Gonna pop that back on and press that down and hold it right where we have the glue. Try to make sure you get it nice and centered. And there we go. And we're just going to repeat that process until we get all of these pieces glued into place. Okay, so moving on to the next one here, just as we did before, I'm going to put a little bit of glue on this segment here. Don't need a lot. And then down here, and let's spread that out. Try to avoid hitting the neighboring piece there. And work on trying to get it centered. You want to try to do your best to, get it centered so that it's almost seamless here. Okay, do your best to try to get it as seamless as possible. There's going to be a little bit of a gap, and that's okay. And I just realized that I forgot to train this. That's okay though. Okay, there we go. It's coming together. Definitely going to need to train that a little bit more. Okay, so just moving right along. Grab your glue and just pop it right on the top part, spread it all the way out. We want it to be nice and flush right up to the top there. Again, make sure you get it nice and centered. And kind of lay it out before we glue it down. Make sure that that top part sets appropriately so that as we bring this down, it kind of lines up. Because it's possible that if you glue this and it's kind of skewed a little bit, it may not sit perfectly straight. Okay, and I keep forgetting to train the petals here, so I want to make sure to do that before I glue it down. Okay, you can actually even take it and kind of curl it gently to give it a little bit more of a curl upwards, and that works fine. Just a little bit of glue there, and then right along the last section there. Spread that glue out at the bottom and bring it down. Nice and centered. And continue to hold it, especially in these two sections where we put the glue. And that is turning out very nice. Look at that. Okay. Give it a few extra seconds just to make sure it really holds. Okay, put that back on top. There we go. Okay, and you know what I should just do so I don't forget? Might as well just train these all right now. Kind of create a assembly line a la Henry Ford. All right, moving right along here. Okay. And then we're going to take, after we do this, we're going to put the little calyx in place. All right, so again, we're putting this pretty much up to the top of the actual structure. We want that to go as high as it can go without encroaching and going onto this green section. Now the other section that we're going to put on top here is going to actually drape over this, so it's going to kind of hide this seam and make everything look very natural. Okay, so we've got that top part. It looks like it's pretty much gotten a good hold. So we'll move on to these two sections, same thing. Okay, beautiful. And just work that down. Make sure it's nice and centered. Try to make it as seamless as you can. There we go. Just like that. It's going to be a very, very special piece. I'm sure that I can't wait to see the reactions when we actually post the trailer on this one. It's going to be interesting to see what you guys think of this. And you can see here, this one, I'm going to wait until it fully sets before I start training it again. I don't want to risk it kind of coming apart because that glue, it's mostly set, but not completely. So no point in rushing. You rush, you're just going to make a mess. Let's not ruin it. Okay, again, so you saw that I popped it on there, lined it up, and then I was kind of holding it, and I needed to adjust it slightly to the left to make sure that it was staying nice and centered on that section. Okay, looking good. I'll peel it back. Again, put a little bit of glue on this section, and then down at the bottom. I want that to be nice and strong there at the bottom, so that if we do have to train the petals again, we know that it's not going to come apart. Okay, getting it nice and centered, focusing the pressure on these two sections where we have our glue. And that is looking very, very seamless right now. It's wonderful. As you can see, I actually chose the same paper for the panel that we did here, so that if you do have a little bit of a gap, it's not as obvious. It's going to look very nice, actually. I've got 2 left. All right, almost done there. Okay, spreading that glue out to the very, very edge of this section, lining it up with the very top. Press that down into place, hold it, and then check to see the alignments. That looks really good. You know, even after it's set, you do have a little bit of wiggle room to kind of adjust it, but I want to try to get it as accurate as you can the first time around. Okay, so there's my glue there. I'll put some glue here. Spread that out to the very, very edge. There we go. And let's bring that down. Again, focusing on making sure that everything is beautifully aligned. There we go. And continue to apply pressure at those 2 points, especially down here at the very, very tip. Yeah, and we're going to definitely need to train these up a little bit. Beautiful. Really taking my time with this one because, well, this is my first time putting it together. I do have in front of me a prototype that Diana put together. It's over here. And one thing I always mention is if you make one thing from our site that's 3-dimensional, you can make anything. It's just a matter of taking everything step by step and just following along. And patience, and also go easy on the glue. And that's the one mistake I was making early on, just caking everything with glue. It would warp the paper, it would leave some unsightly little, well, kind of, you just tell that the paper looked wet while it was drying. And we want to try to prevent that as much as possible. But that looks great. That is actually perfect. The seams look great. I can't complain. Just continue holding that down until it's fully set. Okay, that looks great. Awesome. Okay, so that part's done. We'll pop that on top. Okay, wonderful. Now, if you do seem to have any little areas, now I know I put glue here before, but maybe I missed a little section. You can always take a scrap piece of paper, throw a little extra glue on there, and if you have any areas that have gaps, just tuck that glue underneath, paint it onto the underside of this section, and then just press that down and hold it. And that will allow you to make it even more perfect. How about that? Okay, so that looks great. All right, so now we have this one section here, and this is just going to get glued flat onto this, but we need to take and we need to curl these petals back. Okay, and now one thing that I did not do because of the curl on this, I don't know if we're really going to see it. Yeah, we probably will see it a little bit. I should probably just tidy it up a little bit. And let me find, I think I used that one. Let me grab an applicator here. I'm going to take and ink the other side of this as well, because we're curling it up, so part of this is actually going to be exposed. And since we ink the top, I want to try to keep it all consistent. Inking is completely optional, but if I could just make 2 of these and show you a side-by-side of an inked version and a non-inked version, you'll immediately see the difference. And you'll ask yourself, well, why haven't I been inking all along? To which I'll say, I don't know. You should probably get into it, because it's actually also very therapeutic and fun. Okay, now what I don't like about this right now is that it's not curling up enough at the tip. So I'm taking a smaller dowel and I'm just going to kind of wrap it around the dowel, and you can see the difference there. Hopefully, let me see. Yeah, you can see how that one's curling up even more where these are not. So the diameter of your dowel will also determine how much the paper curls. So I'm actually going to curl this a little bit more just at the tip. I want that to kind of stick up a little bit. And it doesn't have to be exact on each little petal. You never really see that in nature anyway. There we go. Okay, so we're going to top that off with this section here, and that literally is just going to get glued all the way around like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off for a second, and I'm going to begin by putting glue on just this section, and I'm going to focus that, spread it up to the top. I'm not so much worried about the bottom because part of this is actually not even going to be touching. Start with one of the sections in the center. So pick a section. You want that to be lined up perfectly with the very top. It should be flush. Okay, and press and hold that in place until it sets. And you can kind of take a test drive here and make sure that everything will line up perfectly, and it does. Okay, so we've got that one section. Seems to have a good hold. So I'm going to go ahead and put glue on the remaining. Looks like I've got 3 sides here. I'm just going to do 3 at a time because I still need to be able to hold it. Spread that glue up to the top. Okay, and press that into place. Try to keep it nice and even. There we go. Beautiful and beautiful. And just hold that in place until it sets. And it's looking perfect. And I've got one last one here. I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on there and press that down and hold it. And while I'm holding that, I can actually peel this side back. And let's get the last 3 sections covered with some glue. Spread that up to the top. There we go. And fold it over. Make sure you're keeping it nice and flush with the top, as flush as you can get it. And then it should meet up beautifully with the other seam. And it does. Okay, so that just leaves, we have a little topper that we're going to put on this. There we go. And that's this little guy that we put together earlier in the assembly. And that's just going to go right on top. So we can take our glue, and you want to put it on both of these sections, both halves. And I'm going to take that glue and dab it so that I get coverage on the entire thing. I want that entire thing making contact. Doesn't matter which way you put it on. The little hat, the little flower hat is symmetrical, so it doesn't really matter. But definitely make sure you are pressing down on the entire surface area there so that it looks nice and flush, and that looks perfect. All right, look at that. So that is done, I think. Yeah. Yeah, and then, you know, when you take a look at the final photo, I'm going to put some little rhinestones around the top here just to kind of jazz it up even more. And there's going to be all sorts of rhinestones on this here. We're really going to make this thing sparkle. Okay, and again, I don't want to, try not to put it on the table too much because I just noticed that it wasn't creased, but it was getting close. If you do put it on the table, don't push down on it. Okay, so that is it for the hat. Okay, so we're ready to start putting the panels on for the face. Now, one thing I want you to do, now remember when we put the 1 and 2 on here? Now this numbering scheme is just to help you get these in the correct order. They do not apply to the numbers that you see on these 2 pieces here. Okay, so we have a total of 8 of these, and well, all except for 2 are just plain, with the exception of some of these have these little notches cut out here, and that is going to be for the sections where we have the little holes for the ears. Okay. But with that said, what we need to make sure we do is we need to make sure we get the orientation correct on these, because the top is a little bit thicker than the bottom. Okay, so make sure that you have it in the correct orientation. You'll notice that if you do this, you see the layer behind it kind of showing through there. So we need it in this orientation. The top part is a little bit thicker than the bottom. Okay, so we're actually going to start with pieces. There are some Roman numerals here. We got a 1 and a 2. Now these do not go on 1 and 2 here. I'll show you where they go. So we've got this little slit for the ear, and then there's one on the opposite side. So this is where the nose is going to be. Okay, piece number 1 needs to go here, and piece number 1, this section here that has the number 1 actually goes on piece number 2 from the previous assembly. So panel 1 is going to get glued to section 2. Okay, just like that. And then panel 2 with the Roman numeral 2 is going to go just to the left, or sorry, just to the right of panel 1. Okay, and you'll notice that on these two, I've actually, well, I put a little makeup on her just to make her cheeks nice and rosy. I did that before we actually put it on there, just because it's easier to do it when it's flat. Of course, once we get everything put together, if you want to touch up the makeup, you can absolutely do that. I didn't actually use makeup, I just used ink, but I'm just saying that I did that beforehand. So anyway, with that said, now one other thing you may be wondering, and again, it's pretty self-explanatory. The top section needs to be at the top. It's thicker or wider up here than it is down here. And if you're not sure, just put it on a ruler or grab a ruler and check it out. This bottom section is about 1.5 inches wide, where the top section is about 1 3/4 inches. Okay, so just make sure you have it in the correct orientation. So what we're going to do, and again, panel 1 is going to go on section number 2 where we filled it in. And this is going to get glued similar to what we did with the flower. We're going to glue that right to the top, and then we're going to bring it down to the bottom like that. And we're going to put a little bit of glue on each section just to kind of hold it in place, but we don't want to overdo it. And just like we did with the flower, I'm going to start by applying glue to the very top only. Okay, and I'm going to take that glue and spread it out to the very, very edge. Okay, so again, panel 1 going on section 2. We're going to butt that up as high as we can go. Make sure that we keep it nice and centered as well. And then check your work while it's drying to make sure that you have it nice and centered. That looks pretty darn good. Okay, continue to hold just that top section there. Okay, don't let go until we're totally sure that it's ready. And that fits perfectly for me. Okay, so I'm going to peel this back now, and I'm going to apply just a tiny little bit of glue along the sides here, on both sides. Just a tiny little bit, and then also I'm going to put glue on the very bottom of this, and I'm going to spread that glue out to the very edge, because I want it to look very flush and seamless. Okay, so bring this down very gently, don't push too hard, and then you might need to kind of give it a little bit of a push to get it into its final little resting place there. And that turned out nice. Okay. Yep, that looks great. Okay, and just kind of keep holding that there. Now looking at this, I don't even think it's really making that much contact with the glue that we put on there. And I don't know that I really want it to do, or to actually make contact there, because we do want this to be round. So yeah, you know what? I think we can probably skip putting glue on these sections here and just focus on the top and bottom. That's looking good. Okay, so here's panel 1. Now we're going to grab panel 2, and it's going to go to the right of panel 1. And let me just check my work here. I want to see how this is going to look. once we actually get it in place. And yeah, that looks really good. Almost seamless. Never going to get it completely seamless because again, we're taking paper and trying to make it round. Okay, make sure that you've got the thicker side up. Okay, spread that glue out to the very, very top. And let's line that up. Now these two sections here are probably the most important because this is where we're going to see the facial features. So try to get this as seamless as you can with these two sections. And that, I'm very happy with that. That's fine. Okay, so keep holding that up at the top there. And I think I'm going to skip putting glue on these sections here because it's really not even making contact with it. So I'm going to put glue on the bottom of this tab, or this panel I should say, and spread that glue all the way to the very edge. And then let's bring it down. Again, trying to make sure we get it nice and centered. And press that down into place there at the very bottom. If it helps, grab a little dowel. My fingers are not that skinny. And kind of use that dowel to press that panel into place. Okay. And that looks pretty darn good. Oh yeah. Cool beans. Okay. So we've got two in place now. I think that is holding very nicely. All right, so now as we move along here, you're going to want to find the piece that has this little cutout here because we're approaching that section there where we're going to need to be able to access that. So make sure you grab the right piece there that has the little cutout there. Okay, let's get that glued up at the top first, just like we've been doing. Okay. And we'll get that lined up nice and center. Okay, and as we're holding it, let's just kind of test it out, see how it looks. That looks good. Very flush at the top. Okay, it's holding nicely. We can flip it over, put our glue here at the bottom. Spread that glue out nice and thin and bring it down. And just press and hold down at the bottom there. Again, grab a little dowel if necessary. You can even kind of push it this way. Okay, and just keep holding. Okay, so panel 3 is in place. Everything's looking very round. Now, at this point, we need to find the little panel with the cutout on the left side because we're still dealing with that little section there where the ears are going to go. So let's make sure we do that. Okay, and just line that up right at the top. Make sure it's nice and centered as you're holding it. Kind of bring it down. Take a look and see what it's going to look like. I think that looks great. Yeah, nice and round. That's what we're looking for. Okay. There we go. And then we can flip her over this way. And put some glue at the very bottom. Thin it out a bit, spread it down as far as it'll go. And get it nice and centered. And press that down into place. Now, also keep in mind that if you're off just by a smidge, don't worry about it, because we're actually going to we've got some really cool cord that we're going to wrap around here, and that's going to hide any potential imperfections that you may have there. And I'm just kind of looking up here at the top. Everything looks good. All right. So now these sections here, we don't need any special pieces here. These are just going to be flat on the sides. There's not going to be any little cutouts or anything. So just grab one of those that does not have any special cutouts on it. Again, spreading that glue out to the top. Just kind of maybe being a little too stingy with the glue there that time. There we go. And get that lined up nice and centered. Just flush up to this little lip as you can go, and press and hold. And then I'm going to take a look and see how I'm doing with my centering here. It looks good. Yeah, and a lot of these seams here, this was the most important one. I think we did really good there. A lot of these seams are actually going to be covered up by hair, which is actually, I think, what we're going to do in just a minute here. I'm going to start working on the hair. So don't worry if you have some seams showing. It's not a big deal. We'll get that all cleaned up. Kind of hide it with the beautiful hair that we've got for our pretty fairy. Okay, just hold that down as far as it'll go. It should pretty much meet up at the bottom there. And just continue to hold that in place. And that just leaves us with 3 more of these panels. And then, yeah, we're going to be very, very close here to finishing this up. Okay, that looks good. All right, so now, again, grab one that does not have any cutouts on either side. Start at the top, get that glue on there. And there we go. Get that nice and centered. Brr, beautiful. And there we go. Okay, keep holding that until we're sure it's set. You can flip it over. Grab your glue. Get that glue out to the very, very bottom. And bring that down and press that into place. There we go. Beautiful. Looking sharp. Oh yeah. Okay. Be patient here while it sets. Looking good. Okay. And now we're going to need one of these with the little notch cut out on the right, since we're approaching another little section there where we need to anchor the ears. We're actually going to do that once we're done with this. We're going to get the ears in there. Okay, so glue up at the top, centered, nice and flush up to the little lip at the top. I don't want to go past the lip. There we go. And there it is. I'll flip it over. Get some glue on the very bottom. Beautiful. And just bring that down all the way to the bottom as far as it'll go. There we go. And just keep holding that. Awesome. And that just leaves one more. You should have a notch on the left-hand side. Grab your glue and run that glue all the way to the top there. That was very tacky. I don't know if it's going to stick. I might have not put enough on there. We'll see. Yeah, it's working okay. All right, so last one. Just focus on getting it centered. Make sure that it's staying. Okay, we can flip it over. Throw some glue on the bottom. Spread it out a bit. And bring it down. Finish that up. Okay. Looking good. Okay, so I'm looking at this here, and you can see that I have more of a gap on this side, but that's okay, because like I said, we've got hair that is actually going to cover that up. So this was the seam that we really wanted to kind of focus on and make sure that we try to get it as seamless as possible. And I think we did a pretty good job of that. Now, if you're not happy with it and it's sticking out a little bit too much, again, you can take a little piece of scrap paper, put a little bit of glue right on the tip of it, and see if you can tuck that glue into and underneath there, and then just give that a press and hold it in place. And that almost, not completely, but it does help get rid of some of that seam that you see there. There we go. Okay, so next thing we can do is, well, you know, we can actually get these glued on. And these are going to go right here at the bottom, like so. I'm just going to glue those on like that. Now, we are not going to glue this to the front two, where you have panel 1 and panel 2. They go on every other one though. So these two do not get one of these. So why don't we just get these glued into place? Just take care of this real quick. So again, skip the two sections where the face is going to be. 1 and 2 do not get one of these. So I'm over on the section to the right of panel number 2. We're going to push that up into that little crevice as far as it'll go and just press and hold that in place until it sets. Okay, just like that. And again, we're going to be putting some braid around this seam right here where the two sections meet. So even if it's not looking perfect for you right now, don't worry about it. We're going to make it look awesome. Okay, so grabbing the next one, just moving to the next segment. We got 6 sides that we're doing this to, and just press and hold that down into place there. Going as far as we can go into that little crevice there where the seam is. Perfect. Okay, moving right along. Let me see here. Yeah, looks good. I think the wings are actually going to go on last. We're going to do the hair. Actually, we do need to put the eyebrows on before we put the hair in place, because the hair is actually going to cover up the eyebrows, but it's not going to cover up anything else. I might put the eyes in as well, just so that we don't risk having to mess with the hair too much when we get to that point. Okay, so just moving right along here, going to the next section with these little leaf pieces. Push them up as far as they'll go. Okay, so I have two more little leaves to put in place here, and then we'll start putting on some of the other features. Again, be conscious of where you're putting these so that you don't put them in the wrong place. You want to omit these two sections where we have the facial features. Okay. Just hold that in place for a few extra seconds. Make sure it gets a good grip. There we go. And the last one. That should be good enough. There we go. All right. Good deal. Okay, so moving along here, making good progress. Let's turn it over to where the face is, and definitely want to get the eyebrows in place here. Okay, so the eyebrows are going to go like this, and there are some little markers here to help you with the positioning of the eyebrows. Okay, so we're going to throw a little bit of glue on the back of this, just a tad. Don't need a lot. It's a pretty delicate little piece, so you don't need a ton of glue on there. And use the little guides to help you position those eyebrows correctly. And there we go. Just like that. Beautiful. Grab the other one. And just little dots of glue will do. Make sure you get it all the way out to the very edge of the eyebrow. Line that up and just drop it in. There we go. Perfect. Okay, you'll see the markers there. They're kind of hard to see on camera, but you'll see them. Okay, so you know what, while we're doing this, I feel like we may as well just finish it up. And we'll grab the first little eye. This one is going to go on the left-hand side. Okay, let's grab our glue and get our glue. I'm going to cover up the entire piece here as much as you can, but don't cake it too much. And just like before, there are little markers to help you with the positioning of this piece as well. So make sure that you're using that to your advantage. And now we're trying to put something flat onto kind of a round surface, so you may need to apply a little extra pressure. I'm actually adding a little extra pressure up here at the top. The bottom part seems to be making good contact, so that is working out nicely. There we go, beautiful. Now it's really starting to come together, and you can see the little blush that I added there is really starting to make a whole lot more sense now. Okay, and working on the next section here. Next little eye. Get that in place. Again, use those little markers there. We're going to be covering up these little Roman numerals at this point. And there we go. Okay. You got to bring that up a tad. Probably helps to make sure you're actually looking at it, you know, face on from the front. There we go. Beautiful. All right. She is looking good. All right. Okay. Wow. It's coming out better than I anticipated, actually. Okay, so you know what, we're going to take the nose, and you do want to kind of bend this a little bit. You don't want to crease it, but give it a little bit of a bend because it does need to span 2 sections. So I'm just going to put a tiny little dot of glue throughout this entire piece here, and if you feel like maybe that was even too much, just dab it with your finger a little bit and find the little marker there to help you with the positioning of that, and then you're going to have to fold it over. Okay, so you're going to have to press down just to make sure that it sits just like that. Just hold that in place for a few moments. There we go. Beautiful. Perfect. Okay. All right, and that just leaves our lips. And give that a little bit of a crease. And before we put it on, just kind of pop it on there and see if we need to crease it a little bit more or not. I think that's pretty good. It seems to be making good contact throughout. That's all we really need. If there's a little bit of a gap there, it's okay. Just as long as it looks mostly flush and as long as it sticks, that's all we're really concerned about. We don't want it falling off, obviously. So do your best with the gluing. There's also a little marker there for the lips. Press and hold that in place. And there we go. Whoops. Kind of nudged it too much. I might have gone a little bit too sparse on the glue, but I'm going to hold it and see what happens. It might be good. And then definitely going to give her a little beauty mark with a little rhinestone here once we're all done with that. That looks great. Look at that. Okay, cool. Cool beans. So let's see what this looks like now with this on here. I definitely want to give her some hair. There we go. All right, it's coming along. So definitely want to throw some hair on there. And before we do the hair, we've got the ears, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to stick these through these little slits here, okay? And then on the inside, we're going to put glue. Whoops. We're going to put glue. I'll show you here. It's kind of awkward. I'm going to put glue on both sides, and then we're going to spread the tabs apart and glue them so you can see the 2 tabs there. And I'll use this. We're going to spread these apart so that one goes on that side and the other one goes on that side. I have to use my finger to do that. I can't use the dowel, but I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. Okay, and there we go. You can kind of push that into place. And there we go. They're kind of wiggly, and that's okay. All right, so you can see inside here, there's one tab and there's the other tab. So I put glue on the back side of this and then just pushed it over onto the inside of this structure here. Okay, so again, we're going to take this just so that visually you know what I'm talking about. We're actually going to put glue on these 2 sides here and then spread them apart so that they adhere to the inside of our fairy's head. So stick those tabs in there. Okay, and then we're gonna apply our glue to the outside of each of these little tabs. Then we're gonna spread them apart so that they adhere to the inside of the structure here. There we go. Okay, all right. And we're probably gonna pull these back a little bit once we get the hair on so they're not sticking out so much. But this is looking great. Okay. All right, Miss Fairy, it's time to give you some hair. And I've got all of the hair pieces here. I've got, it's like a two-toned double layer sort of thing. And I'm gonna show you which pieces go with what. Well, that's actually kind of self-explanatory. So let's do this. Let's lay these out. Okay. And the other sections are kind of numbered. And we just need to match these up with the corresponding pieces. So like, for example, this one's gonna go here with this one. So that one's gonna go here. And you'll notice that it is a little bit smaller. So you can actually, as long as this section is filled in with this piece, that's fine. It doesn't matter if you glue it flush here or if you center it. I don't think it really matters. But before we go any further, you definitely wanna play the match game at this point so that we can match all of these up. And like this one, for example, you'll notice that there's a little tab here. Okay, this piece is not going to extend past that tab, so that's going to go with that one. And then as we kind of move along here and rule some of these out, it'll be a lot easier to find the rest of them. So this one's going to go with this one. Let's find this one here that looks like this guy here, and it is. And then this one here looks like this one here. Okay, so just lay these out on your table. And this guy looks like this guy here. That is. We've got a long one like this. Looks like a saber tooth. Okay, we'll put that there. Grab this one. And this guy here. Okay, then we'll go here, match that up. And as you can see, it's getting a lot easier to figure out what goes where. And then the last one here. Okay, so just get them all matched up. And then we're gonna do some gluing. And while we're gluing, we're actually gonna style it a little bit and start to shape it as well. And I'll show you what needs to be shaped in what way. We're gonna make this easy for you. Now that we've got everything matched up, we still have to glue everything, but what I want you to do, well, we're separating the hair into the front and the back, okay? So you'll notice that some of these have the letter B well, etched into it. They look like little score marks, but you've got a B. In this case, this is B5. 5 is, again, we've used this numbering system before. It's 4 little dashes in the shape of a square, and then there's a 1 here. That's a B, so this is B5. Anytime there's a little square like that, that's 4. Okay, I'm not gonna do all of these, but I'll show you here. This has a B, 1, 2, 3. So find all the ones that have B's on them and put them in a little pile. This is B1. Okay, we've got B4 here, B, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 in the shape of a square. Okay, so you get the idea. Find all the ones that are B's and put those all together. The ones that do not have any B's on them, you want to put those in a separate pile as well. We're going to start with the ones that do not have the letter B on them. And we're actually going to do this in order. So this one has a 3, this one has a 2, this one has a 1. Okay, so 1 is the one we're going to start with. Okay, so we actually do want to, when we glue this, we want to glue this so it's flush at the top, and then there's going to be a little bit of a border around the outside. It's not really that important, Okay, so don't worry too much about it, but we do need to get this glued into place. So what I would suggest doing is I'm going to put a little bit of glue around this cutout because we don't know where not to put the glue. And then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to put glue around the perimeter. Okay, so just kind of work that glue around the perimeter like so. Then we're going to glue these two sections together, making sure that it's flush at the top. Okay, nice and flush at the top. And then while this is setting, you want to kind of shape it and curve it like this. Okay, and keep pressing that down so that we have good contact there, because as we kind of bend it, it may want to kind of pull away from itself or from the other piece. And if that happens, it's okay. You can always go in and throw a little extra glue into these little areas. Okay, so I noticed that I have a pretty good gap there. I'm going to take my scrap piece of paper, and I think on the next one I'm going to bring this glue all the way out to the very edge of this section here. But it's okay, just paint a little bit of glue in there and then press that down. We don't really want to see a gap in there. Okay, it doesn't have to be totally curved, but you want to give it a little bit of a curve, and then once we actually put it in place, we'll end up curving it kind of naturally because we'll be gluing it, and the glue will kind of force it to curve even more. So I'm just throwing a little extra glue in this area here where I've got a gap, and I'm just going to keep holding until it's fully set and I don't have any gaps. Okay, like I said, I think with the next piece of hair, probably throw a little extra glue on this little area here where there's the cutout so that it looks more seamless. Okay, and again, as you're pressing and kind of gluing these together, feel free to give it a little bit of a curve so it's not flat anymore, you can see. And once that glue dries, it'll kind of maintain that shape. Okay, so this is the number one. Okay, and our number one is going to go right here. Okay, this is going to get glued down flat, flush to the top. Okay, and then ultimately we're also going to put a little bit of glue right here at the bottom so that it sits kind of flush against the side of her head. Okay, so with that said, go ahead and put some glue right at the very top of this. Okay, if you want to use hot glue at this point, feel free. You can totally do that. I try to stay away from hot glue as much as I can. I know I'm going to need to use it when we glue the wings, but for now, I don't think it's necessary. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that this is set here at the top first, and then we can just glue that down. If you want, I think you could maybe even use some foam squares to hold this down, because really all we need to do is make sure that it's somewhat anchored here at the bottom. A foam square might actually work better than glue at this point. Okay, and we can kind of make the hair, give the hair a little more volume if we just use a foam square. So that is an option, or you can glue it. Either way, I might mess around with a little bit of both. I think the glue will be cleaner because then you won't see, won't really see it. Okay, let me figure out where I need to put just a little bit of hot glue. Okay, it's going to go right here at the bottom. I'm just going to put a little touch of hot glue right here. Don't need a lot. Don't want to overdo it. Okay, and just press that right into place. Just like that. Okay, so that's starting to come together. All right, so that is piece number one. Now we need to find piece number two, which is this piece here. Okay, now this piece here is, we're gonna have a little bit of a curve, not too much, not as much as that last one, but just a tiny little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna flip this over and I'm gonna put a little bit of glue along the perimeter here, or the inner perimeter, I should say. Okay, and I'm gonna spread that glue out to the very, very edge here. Okay, and actually, Yeah, I'm gonna grab this piece and then just do some glue along the perimeter. That first little bit of glue that we put down, that is just so that it's nice and flush where the cutout is, so we don't run into that same problem again. I'm gonna press that down, let that get a good hold, and before it fully sets, I'm gonna start kind of curving it a little bit. Just wanna give it a slight curve. See that? If you give it a little bit more, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, there we go, beautiful. Okay, so now this piece is gonna go right here, and you'll notice that this tab is gonna go over onto the next section. Okay, so we just kind of have it like that, and you can see kind of how nice that looks. There's a nice bit of separation there. I don't even think I'm gonna glue this down. I might just let that hang off. Okay, but to glue this down, I'm gonna put some glue right up at the top here, and then also throw some glue on this tab as well. Spread that glue out to the very edge. Okay, and I want to line that up with the little score mark there so that this piece goes over onto the next section, and that's how you know you've got it in the right spot. Okay, there we go, beautiful. Perfect. Okay, so now we got to find piece number 3. This is piece number 3 right here. Okay, and this one here, we're going to kind of curve this out a little bit as well, because right now if we were to put that down, it looks kind of flat. We want to make it a little bit wavy right in this area here, right about halfway. We want it to kind of wave like that, kind of almost like, yeah, just bend it a little bit. So we'll do the same thing with our glue. I'm going to put the glue along the inner perimeter here, the inner cutout, and then I'm going to spread that glue out right along that cutout. Okay, got to kind of work quick here before that sets, and then we'll do a little bit along the actual perimeter of this piece. Try not to bring the glue in too much. You want it towards the outside so it doesn't show through when we glue these together. Okay, so pop that on there. Remember, flush at the top, but centered throughout the rest of the piece, like so. Okay, press that down for a second, and before it starts to set, just start to kind of give it a little bit of a curve. And that glue is really going to help out with that. Once it starts to set, it really will help keep this thing formed properly. And I'm actually going to pull this out a little bit. Okay, so it's almost like that shape. And you guys know way more than I do about styling hair, so whatever you want to do to her hair is totally fine. I'm just kind of showing you, you know, how we're doing it. I'm going to put, this one's going to go right here, and that looks great. Actually, it looks really good. Okay, so let's get our glue right up at the top here. And this one's just going to hang. We don't even need to worry about anchoring it at the bottom, similar to what we did with the piece number 2. Okay, there we go. Get that lined up right up at the top. And just press and hold that in place. Now that is really starting to look awesome. And you can see that I definitely inked her hair. There we go, beautiful. All right, so that's piece number 3. Now we're gonna move over to piece number 4, which is this piece here. Okay, and very similar to what we did with the first piece here, piece number 1. Okay, we're gonna curve that as we're allowing this to dry. And this time around, I'm going to make sure I get enough glue along this little cutout area here. Spread that glue all the way out, or in this case. In this case. Okay, and we'll grab this piece and just throw some glue around the perimeter. There we go. Get that lined up flush with the top, nice and centered. Beautiful. Press that down. Give that a few seconds, and then go ahead and begin kind of curving it like that. We want it to hug the head. Okay, looking good. Definitely one of the more detailed projects, 3D projects. I guess the scarecrow is kind of like this. There's just a little bit more going on because we're dealing with hair and so on. Okay, so that piece is going to go right here, like so. Okay, so just like we did before. And then I'll probably just use a little bit of hot glue. And actually, you know what? I'm going to pull this one out just like I did before. So it's kind of going like this, like almost like an S shape. And I've got a little area there that's kind of pulling away. So I'll just take a little bit of glue on a scrap piece of paper, tuck it right under there. And that should be plenty. I'll just hold that in place for a few extra seconds. Yeah, this is going to look sharp. I think you guys are really going to like this. But definitely give yourself some time to put this one together. Okay, let's throw some glue right up at the very top. Spread it out. And that is going right here. Try to get it nice and flush with this section here. Okay. There we go. All right. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue and just glue that down right about at that point. Okay. Just throw a little dot of glue on there. Don't need a lot. I don't want to overdo it. Plus, I hate when you get all those wispy things flowing all over the place with the hot glue. Not my favorite thing to work with. Okay, I'll just hold that in place. Right there. Okay. All right, so that was piece number 4. And now we're going to grab piece number 5. Piece number 5 is the one that has the little score mark on it. Okay. And just like we did before, I'm going to start by putting glue around the little cutouts. And then we'll spread that glue towards the little cutout. So keep that nice and in place, and then we'll grab this piece and throw some glue around the perimeter. There we go. And just line that up. Remember, flush at the top, nice border the rest of the way. Perfect. And we'll grab this and start kind of shaping it like so. Give it a little bit of a curve. Okay, and then we can take the tip and flare it out a little bit if you want. I think that looks cool. Just my personal opinion. Okay, wonderful. All right, really coming together here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our glue right up at the top and then throw a little bit on that neighboring tab as well. Spread that out all the way to the very, very tips. Okay, and then this is going to go right on here, right on top of the previous piece of hair that we put down. And then this tab's going to cross over onto the face, onto the front. Just hold that in place. And actually, you know what? Maybe it looks better curling in. They must have a hair salon in this forest because her hair is very pristine. Okay, so let's see what that looks like so far. That looks great. Okay, wonderful. All right, so that leaves piece number 6. And again, we'll flip this over and apply some glue around the cutout. Like so. Okay, and then quickly grab the backing and get our glue on there. And just pop that right on the back. Wonderful. Okay. And now with this one here, we're going to kind of curve it down. So we're kind of bending here at this section. And keep pressing, make sure that it really sticks. Okay, wonderful. Everything seems to be making good contact, and now we can take and throw some glue right up at the top. And there we go. And that is going right here on the face, front part here. Make sure you get it nice and lined up at the top. And a little bit of it is going to be sticking over this side here, which is totally normal. There we go. Okay. Okay. Now if you feel that this hair is sticking out too much, you can always just put a little bit of hot glue right back here. I think that's probably good. There's those silly wispies, and then just press that down up against the head. So there's still parts of it that are kind of sticking out, and this one's coming out, but it's not really all over the place. Our hair's kind of together. And actually I'm going to do the same thing on this side because it also hides those little seams there if we have it a little bit closer to the face. So I'm going to do that. I'll throw a little dot of glue right there and then just push that right up against the surface there. Beautiful. Look at that. That looks awesome. Wow. She looks neat. So cool. Okay. All right, so now moving on to the back. Now, if there's time to mess up, now's the time. Okay, so back to this. I'm going to start with B1. Okay, and just like we did with the front, I'm going to put glue around these little cutouts first, just to make sure everything stays put. And spread that glue as close to the little cutouts as I can. Okay, probably should have used a little more, but that's okay. And then, of course, I'm going to go around the perimeter and get that nice and flush at the top. And there we go. And now this one, you need to kind of curve it down so that we bend it kind of in the center. And just make sure that everything is making good contact there. There we go. Okay, that looks good. And B1 is going to go right here, right behind the ear. Okay, and then this tab's going to cross over onto this section here. And then we're going to take and probably just throw a little bit of glue right on that. The back part, I'm not worried about having as much volume on the back because we still need to put the wings in place, and we want to make sure that they're not fighting for room there. So we'll start with putting glue there, and then we need some glue on this tab here as well. And again, just behind the ear on the right side of her head. Okay, and then push that tab over onto the back as well. Make sure it's nice and flush. There we go. Okay, so that was B1. We're going to find the other piece that has the little tab on it. B2 is going to be next. So just get that ready. And then if you got your hot glue handy, I would probably just put a little bit on this seam right here to kind of help keep that down. And the reason I'm using hot glue here is because there's a lot of resistance there, and I don't think that regular glue is going to do the job here, so I'm using hot glue. And I'll just push that into place just to kind of keep it along. I just want to kind of keep it curved. There we go. Okay, so that was B1. Let's find B2. Here's B2. Again, get some glue around the cutouts in this case. Okay, spread that glue as far in as you can. Okay, and then B2. Pop that on there. There we go. And this one again, I'm going to kind of curve it downward because it needs to hug the head. Just like that. And keep on pressing. Don't stop now. There we go. Okay, that's looking good. Then go ahead and get your glue right up at the top and a little bit on that tab. Spread that out. And this one's going to go behind the ear on the left side, right up at the top, just like that. Press that down, push that tab over onto the neighboring side as well. Beautiful. That's looking good. Okay. And then of course, if you want, I would recommend it. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on that seam right about there so that we can make that hair really stay in place. Okay. And just press that down up against the back of the head and hold for just a moment. Okay. So of course we're going in order here. So we're going to find B3, and there's our B3 here. Okay, and B3, yep, so B3 is going to go there, as I was saying. Just wanted to double check so I don't steer you the wrong way. Okay, get that glue around that cutout, spread it out, or in. I keep saying the wrong thing, sorry. And then a little bit of glue around the perimeter. And this one's going to hug the back of the head as well, so we want to make sure that we give it a nice curve. Okay, so press down and then kind of curve it this way. This is the face of it, just kind of curve it towards you. Just to give it a little bit, just to train it a little bit so that it's going to behave once we actually put it in place. Okay, there we go, beautiful. Go ahead and put your glue right up at the top. Spread that glue all the way up. Okay, and that's again going to go right here on the back of the head, left side. There we go. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the back of this here just to kind of keep that in place. Again, we don't need as much volume on the back because we do have some wings that we still need to put in place here. So I'm just going to throw a little bit of hot glue right on the back of that. There's that stinky wispy, and it's going to get glued down flat like that. Okay, so that was B3. Let's find B4. B4 is going to be the neighboring piece right here. So same process here. Boy, are people going to be impressed when you show them what you made. This is definitely, I know you guys tell us that we keep outdoing ourselves, but I think that the team really did a wonderful job with this one here. This is definitely something that, just the level of detail and accuracy, you're not going to find this anywhere else. Sorry everyone, sorry Cricut. Ain't got nothing on Dreaming Tree. All right, so again, just kind of folding it like that. Okay, make sure it's all making good contact throughout. And then we can take our glue just right up at the top. Spread that out. Okay, and that's going to go right here on this little blank area. And just press that down. Okay, and then we have two more pieces that are going to kind of cover these up here a little bit, just to make it look a lot more full. I'm going to grab my hot glue gun, throw a little dot here towards the bottom of the section that we just glued down. And that's just to get it to really hug the back of the head here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we're on to B5. And B5 is going to go right here. Or wait a minute, has it? No. Yeah, B5 is going to go there. Okay, so B5 is going to go here. Right there. And it's going to go over, slightly over this layer here, and that's fine. Okay, so same thing. Let's get that area around the cutout so that everything sits nice and flat for us. And then we'll grab this piece, get your glue around the perimeter. There we go. Let me spread that out. Actually, I think that's fine. Probably should have done that before it's set, or before it started getting tacky. Okay, and now this one here, we do want to, where am I at here? Yeah, I'm going to curve this down again like that so that it basically just hugs the contour of the head. And we're going to end up putting a little bit of glue, some hot glue probably, somewhere towards the center so that it stays put. But before we do that, obviously we need to glue this at the top first. Spread that glue out. And that one's going right here, just behind the right ear. And it's going to go over, just slightly over this section here, just a tad. Okay, so press that in place, and you can see how that's kind of sticking out. So we're actually, I think I'm going to take and put some glue on the previous layer of hair that's just underneath it. So I'll probably put some glue right there. Try to prevent that wispy stuff from getting all over the place. And just press that down. And that looks good. And I may actually throw a little bit of glue right about there as well, just to kind of keep that from sticking out so much. Let me see where else I can put that glue. Yeah, that's probably a good spot right there. So I'm just going to take my hot glue and just pop it right here on the very edge of that little piece of hair there. Don't need a lot. And actually spread that out a little bit because I feel like it's going to come shooting out a tad. I don't want that. There we go. That looks good. Wonderful. Okay, and that just leaves the last piece here. This is B6. And that will complete the hair portion. And then all we have to do is just build our wings, which are not that difficult, and get our wings installed and glued on, and then we'll be done. So yeah, this is probably one of the longer ones. There we go. Okay, and don't forget, as it's drying, kind of give it a little bit of a curve. Just pretend that, you know, you want it to hug the head. So we're just kind of bending it like that. Okay, wonderful. And get your glue right on top. So again, I have a feeling some of you are maybe like, well, how come you're going so fast? Well, I'm not using a lot of glue. That's pretty much why. Yeah, this part's gonna go slightly over onto the front side. Okay, just barely. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to actually throw a little bit of glue right there, probably right on that seam there, just to get it to really hug the head. Sorry, I'm really focusing here because I know this is a very important part. Girls got to have good hair, right? There we go. Perfect. Okay. All right, guys. So that is that. Let's take a look and see what she looks like. Beautiful. Look at that. That is so cool. Even the back of her hair looks great. Okay, so let's get our wings put together and then we'll get them glued on. Okay, so we've got these pieces here. Let me get all these situated and then I'll show you how this all works. We're gluing these back to back and we're going to sandwich a piece of, I think it's Mylar. What is it? Yeah, I'm going to sandwich some Mylar between there. It's like a transparent, almost like it's like an acetate sort of thing going on here. Now, so you need 2 of each shape. Okay, so like this one and this one are going to get glued back to back, like that. But obviously before we do that, we need to glue the Mylar in place. So you want to kind of line these up, get them together. If you're planning on doing any inking, now's the time. Do the inking before you actually put all this stuff together. And then I've got these 2 back to back already. This one's back to back already. Okay, so all we need to do, and I'm probably going to give this a little bit of time to dry because, well, it's going to need some time to dry. And this is going to go right in here like so. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to put glue on one of these sections and get the Mylar on there. And I'm going to be very delicate with this and just do dots. You're not going to see them because the other half of this is going to go on top and it's going to kind of keep everything together. But I don't want a bunch of glue spilling out as this is drying. So I'm just going to be very meticulous and precise with where I'm putting these dots, trying to keep them nice and centered. Okay, and let's get this on there. You want to make sure that you are in fact covering the cutouts. You want to be able to see the beautiful Mylar through the cutout. Okay, now I don't want to touch this with my hands. I'm just going to put this on top and just use that to kind of press that down. Okay, still need to glue this section to the top. That's fine, but let me peel this off. Okay, so you can see it went on there beautifully. So what we can do at this point is take our other half, okay, and let me make sure that, yep, we'll get our glue onto the other half of this now, and we'll just sandwich it. So we're going to give this plenty of time to dry. This I think is also some sort of DCWV paper, and it's not very porous on the back, so I know this is going to take some time to dry, and I'm also going to try to spread some of this glue out a little bit because I feel like I can use as much surface area for glue as possible. Okay, I think that's good. I'm going to pop that right on top there and try to nail it the first time so you don't have to move it around and potentially get glue all over the place. Okay, there we go. I think that I hit that pretty much spot on. Okay, so press that down and that looks great. Okay, now we do want to kind of curve this up a little bit. I don't know if this is going to work very well with the Mylar in there, since the Mylar is not very, I don't know if it's going to really cooperate. But while it's drying, I'm going to just kind of flare the tips of these towards me a little bit Okay, that's really all we need to do as far as the training goes on the wings. Just try to get it so that it kind of curves towards you a little bit. Okay, and we want it, hopefully, once that glue dries, it'll keep it in that position. We'll see how it behaves, but I think it'll be okay. We'll see. But anyway, you get the idea here. We're going to repeat this process with the rest of the sections here until we have 4 pieces, 2 of these and 2 of these. Okay, so I've got these 2 large ones done. I did the other one off camera, but it's the same thing. Just make sure that you've got the 2 coordinating pieces. And then we're going to do the same thing with these here. This one's a little bit smaller, so it's going to be a lot easier to work with. Okay, just make sure that you grab the right piece of Mylar. Okay, so that's going to go in there, and just like we did with the larger piece, I'm just going to do dots all the way around. And then just throw a few here in the center just to give it some extra support. Got it. Okay. And just pop that right on there. Make sure you get it nice and centered. Be careful. That worked out nicely. And I'm going to take this and just kind of put it right on top and use that to push it down. Okay. Let's peel that off and grab this piece. Get your glue on there. And we can start getting these 2 halves joined together. Go easy with the glue, and if you do kind of overdo it with the glue in any of the sections, just hit it with your finger, thin it out so it doesn't go shooting all over the place when you pop this on top of the other layer. I'm kind of using the little squigglies there in the center as my initial guide for placement. And then I'll just give it a little bit of a wiggle wherever it needs to go. Now with this one here, I don't really think we need to train it at all. All right, so we just got one more to wrap up here. And then just need to get the wings glued in place. And then there's obviously some additional things that I'll be doing as far as rhinestones, and then of course I've got a little bow that I'm going to create. That's optional, stuff that I probably won't go over in the video. But just take a look at the final photo of the project on the website, and you can see all the little additional embellishments that were added to really really take this thing to the next level. Not that it really needs it, but you know what I mean. Got to give big kudos to Ron, our art director, who sketched and designed our beautiful fairy here. And he's very thorough with all of the little details that he wants to add. So, yeah, again, if you want to make it like ours, take a look at the final photo, and we always take some nice high-res photos of everything. You should be able to see all the little details. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we got that one glued together now as well, and our wings are pretty much done. Okay. All right, so the way this is going to work, we're actually going to start off with the larger wings, and relative to, well, let's just say that we're going to go on like this, okay? And then this guy's going to actually go, let me make sure I got the right one there. Yeah, that one's going to go behind that one, and then that one's going to go behind. Let me swap these. There we go. It's going to go like that. Okay. So let's do that real quick. Let's get these glued into place. So we'll flip her over. And I'm going to grab this one. It's going to go right here. So we're going to start by just gluing it to the very bottom here. And then obviously we're going to need to kind of anchor it in a certain spot so that it doesn't flail around. Okay, and I'm going to use hot glue for this because we need the extra support here. And plus this is like a glitter paper. I don't trust Scotch glue, the quick dry, for this, especially given how heavy it is. Okay, so this is on the back. Here's the center of the back. I want to get that nice and centered there, nice and flush. Okay, press that down. Let's take a look and see what that looks like from the front. Beautiful. Okay, and then we're going to need to pick a spot here. Probably going to put some glue on this little circular area right here to kind of give that some added support. I think that's a good spot for it. So I'm just going to do one little drop of glue right there. There we go. Get out of here, Mr. Frilly. And push that up against the back right there. Perfect. That's perfect. Yes. Let's take a look. Oh yeah. Okay. I hope that's right. Yeah, it looks good. Okay. Grab the other one. And let's get our glue on the very bottom here. All right, hot glue, you've been good to me so far. Let's keep this up. Okay, and that's going to go right here. You want that nice and flush, nice and centered. Press that down into place. Okay, hold that. That's the one cool thing about hot glue in my mind, or in my opinion, I should say, is that it actually doesn't take that long to set. And then again, I'm going to put a little drop here on this little circle. And that's going to kind of anchor it for us. You're not even going to see it, so it's totally fine. I'm all tangled up in my hot glue gun. And there we go. Press that down. That looks wonderful. Okay, let's see here. Beautiful. Yep, nice and symmetrical. Everything is sitting pretty. Okay, so now I'm going to take this guy here, and you can see the shape of it. Yeah, so this one's going to go on this side here, and we're literally just going to glue it right to the very base like that. And I don't think we really need to add any additional support for that, but I am definitely going to cover this with as much glue as I can so that it sticks. Twirl it around a bit. Okay, and that's going to go right on top of the previous layer, like so. Oh, that's hot. It's hot glue, Leo. It's going to be hot. There we go. Okay, and you know what? Maybe, yeah, we're going to need to put a little bit of support. I'll show you where. Probably right about here. Throw a little extra support. So just a dot of hot glue, maybe right there. And put that right there. Beautiful. And that should do it. I want to create a little bit of separation there, obviously, but could definitely use a little support, and I think it's already sticking good. All right, so last piece here, guys. We're on the home stretch. Doing great. This thing couldn't have come out any better in my mind. Okay, let's line that up. There we go. Perfect. Oh yeah. Okay, and again, you can see we added a little bit of support with some additional glue here. So I'm going to do it roughly, yep, right in the same spot here. I can tell that that's where it wants to, that's where it needs it. It's asking for it. So just throw it right about there. And we'll just press that down. Perfect. Okay, look at that. All right, so as I mentioned, I've got this cord. I'm gonna wrap it around the bottom. I'm gonna give her a little bow in the front. And of course, I've got bling galore that I'm going to adorn this with. So, but that is it. Let's put her little hat on. And there you have it. Look at that. What is going on here in the paper world? All right, that's it, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the assembly video for our Pixie treat box. I've never seen anything like it, and I hope you guys are as impressed with this as I am. It turned out beautiful. So anyway, if you make this or anything from our new bundle, I would love to see it. So head over to your Facebook group, or head over to your Facebook page and do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, where you can join myself and the 30,000 plus other dreamers that inspire us daily. And as you can see there, we're on the cusp of 40,000 subscribers. So feel free to, if you want to subscribe, visit our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. Also hit that bell so that you get notifications anytime we release a new project. So anyway, happy trails in the forest, hunting for fairies, even though we've already got one. And as always, I look forward to crafting with you again.